So let's start with the pumpkin pie, I think, right now, or squash pie. Today we're going to use a sweetmeat squash, and this is sometimes these squashes can carry a better quality even than pumpkins do, as a finer grain of flesh, not stringy, sweeter, and a lot thicker meat cavity inside. You can see how thick this is. Pumpkins have about half of this, and these store so well. This is from our garden, what we grew this year, and we'll probably still have some come May and June. So they really store for an excellent, outstanding amount of time.
What is it called?
Pardon me?
What is it called?
This is a sweetmeat squash, sweetmeat. And another good variety is a Hubbard or Blue Hubbard squash, and they do very well in the Northwest here. And everything that I make is somewhat low sugar. I never like to spoil the food with a lot of sugar or salt and seasonings anyhow, so for people who are diabetic and they're sensitive to that, the recipes that we're using here are very light in sugar. Thank you. Because I did want to show you the process of doing this, and I'm going to show you with the pumpkin. This is our pumpkin that we had from this year's garden as well, so I'm going to show you the process. And what I do is I always cut them in half. And we didn't use a pumpkin because our pumpkins this year didn't do as well. We had a very poor growing season, and this one actually isn't so bad. So what I would do when I'm making a pumpkin pie, and not just a pumpkin to eat the squash, or any other type of a winter squash, is I would cut it in half and I would scrape my seed cavity out when I make a pumpkin pie. It's going to take most of the moisture out when you're baking the squash. What you want to do so you can have a dry pumpkin pie. You don't want it to be too wet. If you're just going to eat this to put some salt and pepper and butter or brown sugar or whatever somebody would put on their squash, I would leave the seed cavity in, put it upside down in my baking dish, cover it with something, a little foil or a cover for my baking dish, put about 1/8 of an inch of water in the bottom of my pan, and bake it at 350 for about a half an hour to 45 minutes, or until you can poke your finger. It'll just push right into the flesh, right through the skin, and that's the best way to bake a pumpkin. And from that point on, you let it cool, scrape out your pumpkin. You can see.
That would be true of any squash?
Yeah, any winter squash. This is how you prepare any winter squash. Cut it in half, lay it down in your baking dish, add a little bit of water.
You leave the seeds in the seed cavity?
I do when I'm baking it because I like to keep it moist. If I really like a dry squash, it just depends how I feel. If I like it dry, I'll take the seed cavity out and bake it. We'll put 1 egg in this.
You're using brown eggs.
Sure. Brown eggs are the natural color of eggs. White eggs came from selective breeding of chickens a long, long time ago. So I'm going to put 1 egg in here and a 1/4 teaspoon each. Thank you, Frank. Of cinnamon. Nutmeg.
That's for one baking pumpkin. Should I add that to our list here?
Yeah.
1/4 teaspoon?
Yeah, a 1/4 teaspoon of each.
And what about the allspice?
As well. 1/4
All
teaspoon
three.
of allspice, nutmeg, and cinnamon.
Okay, great.
And to me, the allspice is what really makes a pumpkin pie. I mean, cinnamon does its thing, but the allspice is superb. And I like to add a dash of vanilla. It's not on here, but probably about a 1/2 teaspoon in that. 2 tablespoons of flour to this, and this is just going to really bind everything together. This is going to make everything come together as well. I've got to 1/2 cup of sugar in this recipe. And that's all we're going to put. We don't need any more of the squash is sweet enough itself, and this is really just to top it off. So I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of milk.
1/3 as much honey to...
I was pretty young at that point in time. I was probably 6, 7 years old, so I wouldn't have done that, but I couldn't remember.
What would you say, Nick? I mean, honey is much sweeter than...
I have that kind of question. I go to the internet
Mhm.
and it's there, you know. And I think pretty much honey is maybe used equally, but I'm not really sure.
No,
You know,
well,
but
I think that would be
But
quite
the
sweet
internet
if
is
it
great.
worked, if it is. In our experience, it's much less.
And so this pumpkin pie will go into the oven for about 35 35 to 45 minutes. I'm gonna hand this over to you, Frank.
This is pre-
I did forget the homemade whipped cream, and this can be made with just heavy whipping cream and a couple tablespoons of sugar or honey. Honey, yeah, we'll omit the sugar and say honey. Maple syrup would be perfect in this too. It would give the whipped cream an exquisite flavor. And this stuff right here, if you got a beater at home, an electric one, good for you. I would use it.
Yeah.
You know, but this is whipped by hand, and it takes maybe 5 minutes. Just whipping this whipping cream is all it is. You put it in your dish, a couple tablespoons of your sweetener of desired, and just continue whipping it until you get this nice, awesome, thick whipped cream.
As soon as